In this next part of the conference, there will be 3 presentations, and our first speaker after the coffee break is Dmitry Schepaschenko. He is a member of the staff of the IIASA, the International Institute of Applied Systems Analysis in Austria, and he will make a presentation on recent IIASA advances in global and regional forest assessment using remote sensing. Hello, good afternoon. Can you hear me? Yes, we can hear you very well. And you see the slides? Yes, we do. Dear colleagues, good day to you all. I wanted to share with you some results that were obtained at my institute, the International Institute for Applied Systems Analysis, which is located in Austria, close to Vienna. The institute was established a long time ago, and in just 2 years we'll be celebrating our 50th anniversary. It was initiated during the Cold War as a bridge between East and West, between the United States scientists and the scientists from the Soviet Union, a place where the academia, the people from the academia could meet and discuss various questions. At the moment, 22 countries are members of the Institute, and the representatives of those member states come to the Institute twice a year to discuss the strategy for its development. The UK and Russia are both members of IIASA. We are engaged in a wide spectrum of research in various fields like population, energy, ecosystems. Over here you can see the variety of topics that we address. And one of the IPCC scenarios for climate change is developed at IIASA. I represent here the Ecosystem Services and Management Program. We study ecosystems. And I also belong to the Center for Earth Observation and Citizen Science. I also wanted to emphasize that IIASA, since its inception, has been hosting a Young Scientist Summer Program. Every year, 50 or 60 young scientists, usually PhD students from different countries, arrive at the Institute, and they pursue their studies, they continue their research, they find they find links between what they do and the models and the studies that we carry out here. Well, last summer we could not receive the scientists for the summer school, as you can obviously understand. We only had few participants, and all of them online. On this slide, I'm listing the satellites and the satellite tools that are either already in operation or that will be coming into operation very shortly. Some people claim that the golden age of forest and biomass relevant missions is approaching, because until now, the tools that we have been using were indirectly focused on forests. So they had other purposes, really, and forests were their byproduct or a side effect, really. But now new means are emerging that were designed specifically to study biomass and forests. These satellites will be capable of measuring various parameters, such as the height, or the biomass and the biomass change. But even though we will have those excellent missions, they will still require additional fine-tuning. So the question is, are we able to make best use of these missions, and will users trust remote sensing products, especially given all the issues that were raised by the previous presentation? There are still cases when we have high-resolution scans or images or products, and yet they have certain deficiencies, or there are some parameters or some regions that aren't covered very well. For instance, here there is a map of Jaxapalsa at 25-meter resolution. So globally it looks nice, but you can see here the forests at Novaya Zemlya. You know that there is virtually no vegetation there, and yet it shows us the trees. Or over here you can see this red line where we know the forests are present, but this product says that there are no forests there. And now I'm getting closer to our institute's
или временных сериях, но тем не менее я считаю, что есть очень интересные результаты, полученные нами. Одно из таких это вот как раз связано с валидацией калибровки.
And we have several interesting findings. For instance, the calibration of data. There are two lines of work: the in situ measurements and the visual interpretation of high-resolution imagery. I will start with the ground surveys. We are coordinators of the Forest Observation System Network. It is a project that's partially financed by the European Space Agency, and it is seen as a preparatory stage to launch a new satellite, the biomass mission. We are collecting information about the teams who work on the ground, the ecologists, the foresters, who have some test plots, usually 50 by 50 meter plots at their disposal, and all their data is processed using the same algorithm. And that's how we arrive at the estimates of the biomass and the height of trees standing on the basis of a single methodology. And that's why the data is comparable and can be used to validate remote data to assess the canopy height or the biomass. On the right, I'm listing some organizations from Russia and neighboring states that are involved. There is a big tropical community as well. This is a very good network. And this data is publicly available. Last year, an article was published with more than 100 authors. They are all people who do the actual ground measurements. They all shared their findings. This is a case from Russia, not far from the Lake Baikal. And this is the kind of information that you can find in this database. We decided that we should be limiting ourselves to a number of parameters that we really need for remote sensing. And those people who work in those plot areas, for them it is easier to share a limited data array than to provide us with a complete range of all possible measurements. So over here you can see a link to the team that did the measurements, then the information on the height and the density and the composition of the forest, and a picture taken from the ground. As it has been covered in the previous presentation, the perfect case scenario is when you have 3 tiers of measurements, where you have ground measurements, where you have a low-flying measurements or vehicles that take the measurements, and the set of satellite data. Over here, you can see quite a large plot, 500 by 500 meters. It's split into smaller sites, 50 by 50. And for each of these subsite, we have information about the GSV and the heights, the averages and the maximums. Then this pinkish band is the assessment of the airborne LIDAR. This is the assessment of the biomass on the basis of a flying LIDAR data. In order to produce a map of the biomass, we use smaller size data, then we upscale it to bigger size data, and then the LIDAR data is used to calibrate satellite data. This is yet another example from the Forest Observation System portal. I wanted to emphasize that it is important to share data, because even one researcher with a dozen plots would not be able to arrive at some globally relevant conclusions. So we try to involve ourselves in as many various international networks as possible. I think it's a win-win strategy for an individual researcher and for the bigger networks. Another way in which we use the ground data, here is a Russian case. Probably you know that in Russia, forest accounting has been under reform for the past several decades. The Soviet system of forest management ceased to be. There are fewer field studies. They're not capable of providing national or nation-scale data. A new system has not yet been fully implemented, and as a result, the forest register of Russia and the reports that Russia supplies to international organizations say that there have been no changes recorded in the forests. You can see here to the right, the forested area is stable. The growing stock volume and the above ground biomass is only acquiring hundreds of percentage a year. However, on the left side, you can see several studies published in leading journals like Nature Climate Change and Global Change Biology. And these publications point to the actual change that is several times greater than what can be learned from the national Russian reports. We use the Forest Observation System network data, about 100 test sites, sample plots, and the data of the National Forest Inventory. The first cycle for 10 Russian regions is coming to an end in this forest registry. And we upscale the data. For globe biomass that was mentioned in the previous presentation, and the CCI biomass map. The results are sensational. We believe that GSV is, the actual GSV is about 45% higher than what is present in the forest register of Russia. And in the FAO FRA in the report. And similar findings were made by the Space Research Institutes, and I know there will be a presentation of those findings tomorrow. Okay, the other line of work that I wanted to discuss today is visual interpretation of high-resolution images. Probably you are well familiar with various crowdsourcing initiatives. One of the best known is Wikipedia. By bringing together a lot of people by bringing together many minds. They produced a global encyclopedia. Oh, you may have heard about iNaturalist. It's another platform that accumulates images, photographs of different living organisms like plants and animals, and they help a lot with resolving many issues in the field of biodiversity. Or you may have heard about GeoWiki. It is our platform that we created about 10 years ago and has been successfully used to collect information about land cover, vegetation, to validate various remote maps. Besides, we designed several mobile apps like serious games picture pile. You can classify images, ground images that were retrieved from social media with a georeference, with a geo-label, so we know the location on Earth for sure, or a satellite image. Over here you can see two images, same place, different years. And the user needs to say whether there is any change in the forest cover, and there are three options that I can say yes or no, or maybe. You can win prizes. We are controlling for the quality. The same point is validated by different people, so you can also validate the quality of work of individual users. You can see here there are millions already of classifications, and we achieved that number over a short period of time. We also have another app. If you don't want to sit at your desktop and instead you would like to go for a walk onto the streets, then you can take this app with you. It will lead you to a particular place on Earth. We will ask you to take pictures there at in four different directions. And FAO uses this application. This is a special special version of this app for FAO, Forest Resource Assessment Quest. I don't believe that in Russia we have any current campaigns. We have some running campaigns for Europe and Africa, but if you subscribe to our news or if you subscribe to GeoWiki on Facebook, if you follow us on Facebook, you will be receiving all the news about our activities. In fact, GeoWiki is the internet platform that came into being when we decided to take some thematic maps and overlay them onto Google Earth and other maps to see whether there is any truth in either map. And then all of this evolved into a large-scale platform with games and apps and a desktop app that we use to validate existing maps and to produce new hybrid maps. In particular, Biomass GeoWiki is one of the GeoWiki branches or types or sections where we can visualize the existing and publicly available biomass maps. The color coding is the same for all these maps, so it's easy to compare them. You can point anywhere on the map and see how different maps estimate the biomass there in that location. Well, actually, there is so much information that you can extract just by looking at a high-resolution image. You can, take decisions about land management, land usage. We can say, is this an old forest or a new forest? How big is the forest? What kind of forest is it? Is it a coniferous or a deciduous forest? We can also look at disturbances if you analyze time series. In addition to high resolution scans, GeoWiki also uses NTVI time series and also the Sentinel temporal series. And for the first time, now we have a lot of data from Planet, another satellite, for the tropical region, and we plan to upload this data into the platform as well. So what's the advantage of working with high-resolution satellite data? In case of ground surveys, usually you would have, rather sparse placement of those vantage points on the Earth. Here, with satellite images, you can produce a statistically relevant and reliable sample and obtain more accurate results. This is abandoned agricultural land. You can see here that how it becomes overgrown, this field. And for 8 countries of the former Soviet Union, we produced this map. You can see this is Kaliningrad region. Red shows the abandoned agricultural land in Kaliningrad. Green is obviously forest. This is the vicinity of Moscow. This technique, in addition to generating a map, it also enables you to estimate the area. So you can't just sum up the area of all pixels and say that this is the pixel of a particular class of land cover. Using statistical spatial techniques, we'll be able to say how accurate is the estimation of a particular area, surface area. Another campaign that we ran in GeoWiki last year was called Forest Management. We wanted to understand the intensity of forest use. We considered various categories of forest in Siberia or in Canada. All these dots, they point to undamaged forest. The light green color, neon green, this is where logging is taking place, where there is some human activity. This kind of purplish color shows you areas where a forest is planted, it's being planted. There's high intensity. Oh, this is yellow, sorry. And the darker color in the tropical areas. We see short-lived plantations, less than 15 years. And yellow is forests inside agricultural land. So these are the main categories of forests. We produced a global map with a resolution of 100 meters. And the participants, the users, they were playing, working to win prizes. Not only the amount, but also the quality of work was assessed. And we offered as a prize the possibility of using their name as authors, co-authors on a scientific paper that we will be filing shortly with a scientific journal. I have here a video. You can find, you can watch the video later. The link is here. You can find it on YouTube. There is more information about this forest management campaign in the video. You can learn about the means that are used to classify different landscapes, because it's not just images, there are other means. This is not our work. This is what was published in Science by Curtis and others. They used a similar approach, but they decided to classify reasons of forest loss in different parts of the world. They used 10 by 10 kilometer sites, and overall they had 5,000 points globally. And they also, on the basis of high resolution images, they wanted to find out what the main reason for forest loss was in that particular region. Hansen's map, the well-known map of forest losses, was also employed. And they found out that most of Europe and the European part of Russia and South Siberia, the main reason for forest loss is forestry. And over here you can see fires. All of Africa is in shifting cultivation. This is burn and slash agriculture. Amazon, the Amazon River, the forest loss is commodity driven mainly. The forests are cut down for pastures or other agricultural use. At the end of the month, we are launching a new GeoWiki campaign in order to make improvements to this map. What kind of improvements? We want to change the size, the scale from 10 kilometers to 1 kilometer. The number of points just in the tropics will be about 100,000, and we will be assessing not only the dominant but also the accompanying reasons or drivers of forest loss in Africa. So it wouldn't be just one factor identified. There will be greater diversity. Maybe in Russia, which you will see some nuances, some finer details. So if you want to join, we will be very happy to see you among our ranks. And again, you will be able to win prizes and become an author of an article in a good publication. Here is one interface that is already ready. This is 1 kilometer, 1 by 1 kilometer frame. In red, you see data from the Hansen Global Forest Loss Map. The Hansen map says that the forest disappeared here between 2008 and 2019, and we will be asking users the question, what do you think the reason was? And you can take a look at Google Earth, you can look at NDVI profiles, and you can refer to the Sentinel time series. You can switch between different layers, different maps, and after that, we'll ask you to take a decision. As a result of this activity, we produce hybrid maps, and we publish them in renowned journals. Over here, you can see the map of the agriculture field size and the global human impact on ecosystems, and the forest mask and land cover maps. There are many other publications as well, like a map of certified forests. I also wanted to draw your attention to this publication, recent advances in forest observation with visual interpretation of very high resolution imagery. It was published last year. And in this article, you'll be able to find many more examples on top of what I've shared with you today, and they come not only from IIASA, but from other organizations as well. It's an overview, if you will. In conclusion, let me use this opportunity to remind everyone of what we are to offer to young scientists. You can apply for the Young Scientist Summer Program at IIASA. We are receiving applications until the 10th of January, if I'm not mistaken. If you are doing measurements at a particular site on a regular basis, I invite you to share your data, because together we'll be able to do much more. It's not just data sharing, we'll be able to cooperate, to collaborate. And you can also subscribe to the news, or you can subscribe at Facebook on the GeoWiki campaigns. and see what are the interesting things that we are offering. Months ago, we validated a global map of settlements at the request of the European Joint Research Center. At the end of this month, early next month, we will have another task. We'll be working on this drivers of forest loss campaign. Thank you very much for your attention. Thank you, Dmitry. Actually, you saved a couple of minutes from your allocated time. Well, I have a video of 3-4 minutes, that video, or maybe questions. Oh, I would prefer questions, actually. Do we have any questions? Let me see if there is anything in the chat. Well, I have a question about this map of abandoned agricultural land. What are the source data? What is the resolution of the source data? What kind of land cover do you have today in those abandoned territories? Do we know what happened to this land? Are they covered in forest now? Is it steppe? Do you have anything on top of knowing that this is abandoned arable land? I think the resolution here is like 300 meters. Right now, the map only has the categories that you see on the screen: forest, arable, abandoned, and other. We produced the map using mainly high-resolution scans. If this is an old plow field, and say there is already a noticeable forest in this location, then that place will not be shown as abandoned agricultural land, it will be shown as forest. Or, like on this image, you can see that there are already shrubs or small trees. We have a certain time series. There is time series at Google Earth. So again, if this place was abandoned way before the year 2000, then most likely it will not be seen, it will not be recognized as abandoned agricultural land. Thank you very much. And this is a national map, a Russian map? Well, 8 countries actually, not just Russia, the 8 countries of the former Soviet Union. Very well. Thank you very much, Dmitry. It is time for